A proudly liberal corporation for years, but hasn't brought them an ounce of mercy now that the knives are out for them. The Women's March leader, Tamika Mallory, who's a pal of Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, says Starbucks' plan to shut down 8,000 stores for sensitivity training simply isn't enough. In fact, it's counterproductive, because the company is enlisting the Anti-Defamation League to help, and Mallory says that the Jewish group, quote, is constantly attacking black and brown people. So the boycott of Starbucks must continue. Robert Patillo is an attorney, political strategist for the Rainbow Push Coalition. He joins us. Robert, as far as I understand the accusations here, one group of racists, Starbucks, has made the mistake of hiring another group of racists, the Anti-Defamation League, and they're being attacked by that by a third group of racists, the Louis Farrakhan supporters at the Women's March. All these groups are liberals. It looks like the Rainbow Coalition is actually a little more fractious than that in practice, Robert.
Well, one thing to clear up, that was my previous position at the Rainbow Push Coalition. I'm at the Patillo Law Group now in private practice. But on this point, I think what Ms. Mallory is pointing out is the fact that the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Goldblatt, is a former Starbucks executive. One of the other people involved in this training is Eric Holder, whose history and whose record is so deplorable on issues of police brutality and issues of bias against African Americans. That the Black Lives Matter movement started while Eric Holder was the Attorney General. So it's a matter of this not being PR and being an issue that actually affects real change. So
you're saying that Eric Holder, who was a black Attorney General under a black president, and Jonathan Greenblatt, the head honcho of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, who held some phony baloney diversity job as special advisor to President Obama, that these guys are too insensitive to do sensitivity training for Starbucks?
It's not about sensitivity. It's about making sure that you have policies in place that address issues of institutional bias and stereotypes. If you want to really address stereotypes and bias against individuals, have Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, who was killed because someone thought that he was robbing people just because he had a hoodie on. Have the mother of Tamir Rice, who was killed while he was playing with a gun in front of his house because someone thought that he was a criminal. That is what bias does to individuals. You have to have a real event and have a real training session.
Wait a minute. When you were doing Rainbow Push, the Reverend Jackson has done these kind of training sessions for corporations for years. You need people who can train them. Now, in this case, Starbucks, which is a famously liberal corporation, to the point where it was putting liberal messages on its coffee cups, an incident arose because they had two people in there who were in the store but didn't want to buy coffee, didn't want to buy one of their cardboard pastries, didn't want to buy one of their butterscotch pepperoni macchiatos or whatever the hell else they're selling in there. Is the argument that because of who they are, the identity group they belong to, they should have been allowed to remain in the store?
No, the issue is that every other person that's been in a Starbucks knows that people are there who are not actively buying things at that exact moment. And the fact that we stereotype groups and stereotype individuals as if they somehow don't have the same rights as other people. If that's the rule, enforce it across the board. If that's not the rule, enforce it across the board. But we can have situations where individuals are picked out and targeted and then arrested because of their identity versus their being part of another ethnic group. That's the point that has to be pushed across, not some phony baloney idea that these people were just didn't want to buy something. They were there just like any other individuals, and if they had bought something later, if they bought something sooner, everyone has seen people doing this. Why just these individuals being picked out?
Wait a minute, Starbucks is shutting down its entire chain for this sensitivity training. The objection to the Anti-Defamation League is that they're constantly opposed, as Tamika Mallory says, to black and brown people. Is that actually true?
Well, the Anti-Defamation League has come out against various African-American organizations, be it the Nation of Islam under Minister Louis Farrakhan, be it the New Black Panther Party, be it other groups.
They're against Louis Farrakhan because he says things like, instead of going on about what Hitler did to the Jews should think to ask themselves what they did to make Hitler mad enough to be that opposed to them. That's what Farrakhan said, and that's why the Anti-Defamation League is opposed to Farrakhan. But here's my point. These are liberal groups. Why are they insufficiently liberal to hold? Because right-wing groups generally don't want to do sensitivity training. It's a liberal thing. If liberal groups can't even agree on their own sensitivity training, maybe there is no rainbow. Maybe we should all just go back to hating each other openly.
Well, it's not about liberal groups. It's not about sensitivity training. It's about the point of implicit bias against individuals that can have deadly effects for people who are simply arrested for no reason. Think about what happens if there weren't people there with cameras for these two individuals. They are arrested. They're charged with a crime. They're maybe charged with resisting arrest. They spend thousands of dollars in legal fees. They can no longer apply for certain licenses. You ruin someone's life based upon an implicit bias that you hold. That's not sensitivity training. That's called just having regular human decency and addressing individual human rights. That's the point that needs to be put across.
We have to leave it there, Robert. Thanks for coming on the show. Tucker will be back after the break with part 2 of our series, Is College Worth It? Tonight, he tackles the impact of affirmative action on Americans. That's coming up next.